Hey, hello, ladies and gentlemen, Philip over here, and welcome back to another reading live stream. It has been a few days since I last did one, hasn't it? Well, we are once again back to reading more of Stephen King's collection of short stories. This one titled uh, this collection of stories compiled into one book titled Night Shift, as you can tell in the preview picture. And so what I'm thinking of doing is finishing up the story that we were on when I last read the book, as well as reading a full one. At this point, I don't know how much of this I can read before the month is out because I wanted to read these other three books almost to the point to where I might read the other three books along with this one. Maybe we'll see what happens. But either way, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So without further ado, let's continue with the story that we were on and see if we can finish and see if we can read a second one. Tuesday, 2 a.m. Tuesday. Hall was bushed and very tired of listening to Wisconsin's steady patter of profane complaints. He wondered if it would do any good about Wisconsin. He doubted it. It would just give Wisconsin something else to bitch about. Hall had known it would be bad, but this was murder. For one thing, he hadn't anticipated the smell. The polluted stink of the river, mixed with the odor of decaying fabric, rotting masonry, vegetable matter. In the far corner where they had begun, Hall discovered a colony of huge white toadstools poking their way up through the shattered cement. His hands had come in contact with them as he pulled and yanked at a rusty, gear-toothed wheel, and they felt curiously warm and bloated, like the flesh of a man afflicted with dropsy. The bulbs couldn't banish the 12-year darkness. It could only push it back a little and cast a sickly yellow glow over the whole mess. The place looked like the shattered nave of a desecrated church, with its high ceiling and mammoth discarded machinery that they would never be able to move. Its wet walls overgrown with patches of yellow moss, and a total chair that was the water from the hoses running in the half-clogged sewer network that eventually emptied into the river below the falls. And the rats, huge ones that made those on third look like dwarfs. God knew what they were eating down here. They were continually overturning boards and bags to reveal huge nests of shredded newspaper, watching them with atavistic loathing as the pups fled into the cracks and crannies, their eyes huge and blind with the continuous darkness. Let's stop for a while, Wisconsin said. He sounded out of breath, but Hall had no idea why. He had been gold bricking all night. Still, it was about that time, and they were currently out of sight of everyone else. All right. He leaned against the edge of the electric wagon and lit up. I never should have let Warwick talk me into this, Wisconsin said dolefully. This ain't worth for a man, but he was mad the other night when he caught me in the crapper up on four with my pants up. Christ was he mad. Hall said nothing. He was thinking about Warwick and about the rats. Strange how the two things seemed tied together. The rats seemed to have forgotten all about men and their long stay under the mill. They were impudent and hardly afraid at all. One of them had sat up on its hind legs like a squirrel until Hall had gotten in kicking distance, and then it had launched itself at his boot, biting at the leather. Hundreds, maybe thousands. He wondered how many varieties of disease they were carrying around in this black subhole. And Warwick's something about him. I need the money, Wisconsin said. But Christ Jesus, buddy, this ain't no work for a man. Those rats. He looked around fearfully. It almost seems like they think. You ever wonder how it'd be if we was little and they were big? Oh, shut up, Paul said. Hello, Daniel Barry. How you doing tonight? Wisconsin looked at him wounded. Say, I'm sorry, buddy. It's just that he trailed off. Jesus, this place stinks, he cried. This ain't no kind of work for a man. A spider crawled off the edge of the wagon and scrambled up his arm. He brushed it off with a choked sound of disgust. Come on, Paul said, snuffing his cigarette. The faster, the quicker. I suppose, Wisconsin said. I suppose. 4 a.m. Tuesday. Lunchtime. Paul and Wisconsin sat with 3 or 4 other men, eating their sandwiches with black hands on that not even the industrial detergent could clean. Paul ate looking into the foreman's little glass office. Warwick was drinking coffee and eating cold hamburgers with great relish. Ray Upson had to go home, Charles Brochu said. He puke? Someone asked. I almost did. Nah. Ray'd eat cow flop before he'd puke. Rat bit him. Paul looked up thoughtfully from his examination of Warwick. Is that so? He asked. Yeah, Brochu shook his head. I was teaming with him. God damnedest thing I ever saw. Jumped out of a hole in one of those old cloth bags. Must have been as big as a cat. Grabbed onto his head and started chewing. Jesus, one of the men said, looking green. Yeah, Brochu said. Ray screamed just like a woman, and I ain't blaming him. He bled like a pig. But that thing let go? No, sir. I'd have thought it 3 or 4 times with a board before it would. Ray was just about crazy. He stomped it until it was nothing but a mess of fur. Damnedest thing I ever saw. Warwick put a bandage on him and sent him home. Told him to go to the doctor tomorrow. That was big of a bastard, somebody asked, or somebody said. As if he had heard, Warwick got to his feet in his office, stretched and then came to the door. Time we get back with it. The men got to their feet slowly, eating up all the time they possibly could, stowing their dinner buckets, getting cold drinks, buying candy bars. Then they started down, heels clanking dispiritedly on the steel grillwork of the stair risers. Warwick passed Hall, clapping him on the shoulder. How's it going, college boy? He didn't wait for an answer. Come on, Hall said patiently to Wisconsin, who was tying his shoelace. They went downstairs. "7 a.m. Tuesday. Hall and Wisconsin walked out together. It seemed to Hall that he had somehow inherited the fat Pole. Wisconsin was almost comically dirty, his fat moon face smeared like that of a small boy who had just been thrashed by the town bully. There was none of the usual rough banter from the other men, the pulling of shirt tails, the cracks about who was keeping Tony's wife warm between the hours of 1 and 4. Nothing but silence and an occasional hawking sound as someone spat on the dirty floor. You want a lift? Wisconsin asked him hesitantly. Thanks. They didn't talk as they rode up Mill Street and crossed the bridge. They exchanged only a brief word when Wisconsin dropped him off in front of his apartment. Hall went directly to the shower, still thinking about Warwick, trying to place whatever it was about Mr. Foreman that drew him, made him feel that somehow they had become tied together. He slept as soon as his head hit the pillow, but his sleep was broken and restless. He dreamed of rats. 1 a.m. Wednesday. It was better running the hoses. They couldn't go in until the crap crews had finished a section, and quite often they were done hours hosing before the next section was clear. which meant time for a cigarette. Hall worked the nozzle of one of the long hoses and Wisconsin pattered back and forth, unsnapping lengths of the hose, turning the water on and off, moving obstructions. Warwick was short-tempered because the work was proceeding slowly. It would never be done by Thursday the way things were going. Now they were working on a helter-skelter jumble of 19th century office equipment that had been piled in one corner, smashed roll-top desks, moldy ledgers, reams of invoices, chairs with broken seats, and it was rat heaven. Scores of them squeaked and ran through the dark and crazy passages that honeycombed the heap, and after two men were bitten, the others refused to work until Warwick sent someone upstairs to get heavy rubberized gloves, the kind usually reserved for the dye house crew, which had to work with basins. Hall and Wisconsin were waiting to go in with their hoses when a sandy-haired bullneck named Carmichael began howling curses and backing away, slapping at his chest with his gloved hands. A huge rat with a gray-streaked fur and ugly, glaring eyes had bitten into his shirt and hung there, squeaking and kicking at Carmichael's belly with its back paws. Carmichael finally knocked it away with his fist, but there was a huge hole in his shirt, and a thin line of blood trickled from above one nipple. The anger faded from his face. He turned away and retched. Hall turned the hose on the rat, which was old and moving slowly. A snatch of Carmichael's shirt still caught in its jaws. The roaring pressure drove it backward against the wall, where it smashed limply. Warwick came over, an odd, strained smile on his lips. He caught Hall on the shoulder. Damn sight better than throwing cans at the little bastards, huh, college boy? Some little bastard, Visconti said. It's a foot long. Turn that hose over there, Warwick pointed at the jumble of furniture. You guys, get out of the way! With pleasure, someone muttered. Carmichael charged up to Warwick, his face sick and twisted. I'm gonna have compensation for this. I'm gonna... Sure, Warwick said, smiling. You got bit on the titty. Get out of the way before you get pasted down by this water. Hall pointed the nozzle and let it go. It hit with a white explosion of spray, knocking over a desk and smashing two chairs to splinters. Rats ran everywhere, bigger than any Hal had ever seen. He could hear men crying out in disgust and horror as they fled. Things up, things with huge eyes and sleek, plump bodies. He caught a glimpse of one that looked like as big as a healthy 6-week puppy. He kept on until he could see no more, then shut the nozzle down. Okay, Warwick called. Let's pick it up. I didn't hire as I didn't hire out as an exterminator, sighed Impiston called mutinously. Hollins tipped a few with him the week before. He was a young guy, wearing a smut-stained baseball cap and a t-shirt. Thank you, thank you, Impiston? Warwick asked genially. Impiston looked uncertain, but stepped forward. Yeah, I don't want no more of these rats. I hired to clean up, not to maybe get rabies or typhoid or something. Maybe you best count me out. There was a murmur of agreement from the others. Visconti stole a look at Hall, but Hall was examining the nozzle of the hose he was holding. It had a bore like a 45 and could not probably knock a man 24 hours. You say you want to punch your clock, Si? Thinking about it, Ippiston said. Warwick nodded. Okay, you and anybody else that wants. This is no ordinary, this ain't no ununionized shop. It never has been. Punch out now and you'll never punch back in. I'll see to it. Aren't you some hot ticket? Paul muttered. Warwick swung around. Did you say something, college boy? All regarded himself blandly. Just clear my throat, Mr. Foreman. Warwick smiled. Something tastes bad to you? Paul said nothing. Alright, let's pick it up, Warwick bawled. They went back to work. Hmm. 2 a.m. Thursday. There's okay, I just making sure I didn't say the last bit that I'm about of what I just read as I'm starting the next bit here. 2 a.m. Thursday. All in Wisconsin were working with all in Wisconsin were working with the trucks again, picking up junk. The pile was by the West Air Shaft that had grown to amazing proportions, but they were still not half done. Happy 4th, Wisconsin said when they stopped for a smoke. They were working near the north wall, far from the stairs. The light was extremely dim, and some drips of a caustic made the other men seem 7 miles away. Thanks, Paul dragged on in his smoke. Haven't seen many rats tonight? Nobody has, Wisconsin said. Maybe they got wise. They were standing at the edge of the crazy zigzagging alley formed by piles of older ledgers and invoices, moldy bags of cloth, and two huge bad balloons of ancient magic. Er, yeah, hold on a second. Where do you suppose all the rats go? Paul asked, almost to himself. Almost in the nuts, Seattle way. He looked at the wet and crumbled masonry that surrounded the huge foundation stories. They they drove they drowned you since satisfaction everything satisfied everything saturated everything. I'm sorry. Something black and white flipping out suddenly dived on them. Wisconsin screamed like put his hands on his back. A bat, Paul said, watching it as after that. Yep. Really. Um. Something black and flapping suddenly dive-bombed them. Wisconsin sent. Yeah. Right. Let's move on. A bat, Paul said, watching it as Wisconsin straightened up. A bat! A bat! Wisconsin raved. Um, she didn't even read the note. Okay. It was a big one, Paul said softly. The what's made it best is it's supposed to be in trees and under caves, and it was one big one. It was a big one, Paul said softly. And what's the best but a rat to a cartoon? Hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Where did I go with this? Hmm. Yeah, I'll read a little bit. I'll go back to read a little bit so that way we're all caught up. Something black and flapping suddenly dived on them. The Sonsky screamed and put his hands over his head. A bar, Paul, a bar, Paul said, watching after it and Wisconsin straightened up. A bat, Wisconsin raved. What's a bat doing in the cellar? It's supposed to be protecting us, not silence. Mm. Right? a big one, Paul said softly. And what's a bat without a but a rat with wings? Good question. Jesus, Wisconsin moaned. How did it get in? It was the same way the rats got out. What's going on back there? Woolwich shouted from somewhere behind him. Where are you? Don't sweat it. Uh, uh, yep. Uh, um, was that you, Closet Boy? Woolwich called his sounded closer. It's alright, Paul said. It's okay, Paul yelled. I I burnt my shin. Woolwich started barging to laugh. You want a purple heart. You want a purple heart? Let's see. Um, yeah, um, yeah, I'll just read that bit again. Sorry. Wisconsin looked at Hall. Why'd you say that? Look, Helen knelt a messiah. Wait, hold on a second. Wisconsin looked at Hall. Why'd you do that? Look, Hall knelt in a minute match. There was a square in the middle of the wet and crumbling cement. Tap it. Wisconsin did. It's wood. Hall nodded. It's the top of the support. I've seen some other clubs around here. There's another level under this part of the basement. God, Wisconsin said with utter revulsion. Hmm. Hmm. Let's go ahead and take a quick thing real quick. I'm gonna get me some tea because I can feel the tiredness already coming tonight. I'll be back in about 2 or 3 minutes. Be right back. Alright, let's see if that helps any. Alright. Alright. 3:30 a.m. Thursday. They were in the northeast corner, Ippiston and Frodship behind them with one of the high-pressure hoses, when Hall stopped and pointed at the floor. There, I thought we'd come across it. There was a wooden trapdoor with a crusted iron ring bolt set near the center. He walked back to Ippiston and said, "Shut it off for a minute." When the hose was choked to a trickle, he raised his voice to a shout. "Hey! Hey, Warwick! Better come here a minute!" Warwick came splashing over, looking at Hall with that same hard smile in his eyes. "Your shoelace come untied, college boy?" "Look," Hall said. He kicked the trapdoor with his foot. "Subcellar." "So what?" Warwick asked. "This isn't break time. That's where your rats are," Hall said. "They're breeding down there. Wisconsin and I even saw a bat earlier." Some of the other men had gathered around and were looking at the trapdoor. "I don't care," Warwick said. "The job was the basement, not. You'll need about 20 exterminators. Trained ones," Hall was saying. "Going to cost the management a pretty penny. Too bad." Someone laughed. "Fat chance." Warwick looked at Hall as if he were a bug under glass. "You're really a case, you are," he said, sounding fascinated. "Do you think I give a good goddamn how many rats there are under there?" "I was at the library this afternoon and yesterday," Hall said. "Good thing you kept reminding me I was a college boy. I read the town zoning ordinances. Warwick, they were set up in 1911 before this mill got big enough to co-opt the zoning board. Know what I found?" Warwick's eyes were cold. "Take a walk, college boy. You're fired." "I found out," Hall plowed on as if he hadn't heard. "I found out that there is a zoning law in Gates Falls about vermin. You spell that Vermin, in case you wondered. It means disease-carrying animals such as bats, skunks, unlicensed dogs, and rats. Especially rats. Rats are mentioned 14 times in 2 paragraphs, Mr. Foreman. So you should just so you just keep that in mind. At the minute I punch out, I'm going straight to the town commissioner and tell him what the situation down here is." He paused, relishing Warwick's hate-congested face. I think that between me, him, and the town committee, we could get an injunction slapped on this place. You're going to be shut down a lot longer than just Saturday, Mr. Foreman. And I got a good idea what your boss is going to say when he turns up. Hope your unemployment insurance is paid up, Warwick. Warwick's hands formed in the claws. "You damn snot-nosed iota!" He looked down at the trapdoor and suddenly his smile reappeared. "Consider yourself rehired, college boy. I thought you might see the light." Warwick nodded, the same strange grin on his face. "You're just so smart, I think maybe you ought to go down there, Hall, so we got somebody with a college degree, a college education, to give us an informed opinion. You and Wisconsin." "Not me!" Wisconsin exclaimed. "Not me, Warwick looked at him. "You what?" Wisconsin shut up. "Good," Hall said cheerfully. "We'll need 3 flashlights. I think I saw a whole rack of those 6 battery jobs in the main office, didn't I?" "You want to take somebody else?" Warwick asked expensively. "Sure, pick your man." "You," Hall said gently. The strange expression had come into his face again. "After all, the management should be represented, don't you think? Just so Wisconsin and I don't see too many rats down there." Someone, it sounded like Ippiston, laughed loudly. Warwick looked at the men carefully. He studied the tips of their shoes. Finally, he pointed at Brochu. Brochu, go up to the office and get 3 flashlights. Tell the watchman I said to let you in. Why'd you get me into this? Wisconsin moaned to Hall. You know I hate those. It wasn't me, Hall said and looked at Warwick. Warwick looked back at him, and neither would drop his eyes. 4 a.m. Thursday. Brochu returned with the flashlights. He gave one to Hall, one to Wisconsin, and one to Warwick. Ippiston! Give the hose to Wisconsin! Ippiston did so. The nozzle trembled delicately between the pool's hands. All right, Warwick said to Wisconsin. You're in the middle. If there are rats, you let them have it. Sure, Hall thought. And if there are rats, Warwick won't see them. And neither will Wisconsin after he finds an extra 10 in his pay envelope. Warwick pointed at 2 of them. Lifted. One of them bent over the ring bolt and pulled. For a moment Hall didn't think it was going to give, and then it yanked free with an odd, crunching snap. The other man put his fingers on the underside to help pull, then withdrew with a cry. His hands were crawling with huge and sightless beetles. With a convulsive grunt, the man on the ring bolt pulled the strap back and let it drop. The underside was black with an odd fungus that Hall had never seen before. The beetles dropped off into the darkness below or ran across the floor to be crushed. Look, Hall said. There was a rusty lock bolted on the underside, now broken. But it shouldn't be underneath, Warwick said. It should be on the top. Quite lots of reasons, Hall said. Maybe so nothing on this side could open it, at least when the lock was new. Maybe so nothing on that side could get up. But who locked it? Wisconsin asked. Ah, Hall said mockingly, looking at Warwick. A mystery. Listen, Brochu whispered. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let me say something here. Hold on a second. Okay. Listen, Brochu whispered. Oh, God, Wisconsin sobbed. I ain't going down there. It was a soft sound, almost expectant. The whisk and patter of thousands of paws, the squeaking of rats. Could be frogs, Warwick said. Hall laughed aloud. Warwick shone his light down. A silent flight of wooden stairs led down to the black stone, the floor beneath. There was not a rat in sight. Those stairs won't hold us, Warwick said with finality. Brochu took 2 steps forward and jumped up and down on the first step. It creaked, but showed no sign of giving way. I didn't ask you to do that, Warwick said. You weren't there when that rat bit Ray, Brochu said softly. Let's go, Hall said. Warwick took a last sardonic look around at the corner, at the circle of men, then walked to the edge with Hall. Wisconsin stepped reluctantly between them. They went down one at a time. Hall, then Wisconsin, then Warwick. Their flashlight beams played over the floor, which was twisted and heaved into 100 crazy hills and valleys. The hose thumped along behind Wisconsin like a clumsy serpent. When they got to the bottom, Warwick flashed his light around. It picked out a few rotten boxes, some barrels, little else. The sea from the river stood in puddles that came to ankle-deep depth on their boots. I don't hear them. I don't hear them anymore, Wisconsin whispered. They walked slowly away from the trap door, their feet shuffling through the slime. Hall paused and shone his light on a huge one. Was the mill here then? No, Warwick said. It wasn't built until 1897. What difference? Hall didn't answer. They walked forward again. The sub-cellar was longer than it should have been, it seemed. The stench was stronger, a smell of decay and rot, and things buried. And still, the only sound was the faint, cave-like drop of water. What's that? Hall asked, pointing his beam at a jut of concrete that protruded perhaps 2 feet into the cellar. Beyond it, the darkness continued, and it seemed to Hall that he could never hear sounds up there, curiously stealthy. Warwick peered at it. It's... No, that can't be right. Outer wall of the mill, isn't it? And up ahead. And up ahead. I'm going back, Warwick said, suddenly turning around. Hall grabbed his neck roughly. You're not going anywhere, Mr. Foreman. Warwick looked at him, his grin cutting the darkness. You're crazy, college boy, isn't that right? Crazy as a loon. You shouldn't push people, friend. Keep going. Hello, Baywatcher. How you doing tonight? Wisconsin moaned. Oh, give me that. Hall grabbed the hose. He let go of Warwick's neck and pointed the hose at his head. Wisconsin turned... Hold on, let me see. Let me sure it didn't... Okay. Alright. Give me that. Hall grabbed the hose. He let go of Warwick's neck and pointed the hose at his head. Wisconsin turned abruptly and crashed back toward the trapdoor. Hall did not even turn. After you, Mr. Foreman. You doing good, thanks? No problem, Baywatcher. No problem at all. Warwick stepped forward, walking into the place where the mill ended above them. Hall flashed his light about, and felt a cold satisfaction, premonition fulfilled. The rats had closed in around them, silent as death. Crowded in, rank on rank. Thousands of eyes looked greedily back at him. In ranks to the wall, some fully, some fully, uh, some fully as high as a man's skin. Warwick saw them a moment later and came to a full stop. They're all around us, college boy. His voice was still calm, still in control, but it held a jagged edge. Yes, Hall said. Keep going. They walked forward, the house straggling behind Hall, looking back once and uh, saw the rats had closed the aisle behind them and were gnawing at the heavy canvas hosting. One looked up and almost seemed to grin at him before lowering his head again. He could have seen the bats now, too. They were the roosting of the rough hewn, overhead huge, the size of rows of rooks. Look, Warwick said, centering his beam about 5 feet ahead. A stall green with mold lapping up at them. Further on, Paul could see an ulna, one pelvic wing, part of a rib cage. Keep going, was Paul said. He felt something bursting up inside him, something lunatic and dark with, dark with colors. You are going to break before I do, Mr. Foreman. So help me God. Ooh. They walked past the bones. The rats were not crowding them. Their distances appeared constant. Up ahead, Hall said that one scene crosses the path of travel. Their shoulders set in it, but he saw that a significant a pin twitch, yeah, a pin twitching tail as thick as a telephone cord. Up ahead, the flooring rose sharply, then dipped. Hall could hear a stealthy rustling sound, a big spoon, something that perhaps no living man had ever seen. It occurred to Hall that he had spent the rest of his life looking for something like this through all his days of New Year. The rats were moving in, creeping on on their bellies, forcing them forward. Look, Warwick said coldly. Hall saw something that had happened in the rat tracks. Uh, uh, some hideous monster that never could have survived under the eye of the sun. But nature would have forbidden it. But down here, nature has taken on another ghastly face. The rats were gigantic, some as high as 3 feet, but their rear blades were gone, and they were blind as moles, like their flying cousins. They dragged themselves forward with hideous contact, or hidden eagerness. Warwick turned the face tall, the same, uh, uh, Warwick turned his face tall, the smile hanging on by brute willpower. Had really had to admire him. We can't go on. How? You must see that. The races have been, with, to be honest with you, see, one second here. The rats have been at business with you, I think, Hall said. Warwick's control slipped him. Please, he said. Please. Hmm. Hello, V. How you doing today? That's what you're working on now? I don't know. What are you working on right now? Hall smiled. Keep going. Warwick was looking over his shoulder. They're gnawing into the house. When they get through it, we'll never get back. I know. Keep going. You're insane! A rat ran across Warwick's shield and he screamed. Hall smiled and gestured with a light. They were all around, the closest of them less than a foot away now. Warwick began to walk again. The rats drew back. They tossed the miniature rise and looked down. Warwick reached it first and Hall saw his face go white as paper. Spit ran down his chin. Oh my God, dear Jesus. And he turned to run. Half opened the muzzle of the house and the high pressure rush of water struck Warwick squarely on the chest, knocking him back out of sight. There was a long scream that rose over the sound of the winter, thrashing sounds. Hold! Grunts. A huge, treacherous squawking that seemed to fill the earth. Hold, for God's sake! A sudden wet, ripping noise. Another scream. Weaker. Someone huge shifted and turned. Quite distinctly. Hall heard the wet snap that a fractured bone makes. A legless rat, guided by some bastard form of sonar, lunged against him, biting. Its body was flabby, warm, almost absently. Hall turned the house on it, knocking it away. The house did not have quite so much pressure now. Hall looked to the brow of the west hill and looked down. The rat filled the whole gully at the far end of the noxious tomb. It was a huge and pulsating gray eyeless, totally without veins. When Hall's light struck it, it made a hideous mewling toy. This queen, then, the mater, a huge and nameless thing whose progress might someday develop wings. It seems to control what remains of Warwick, but also um, yeah, among other things. Yeah, saying it seems to dwarf what remainder of Warwick has, but has, that is, that was last, that was probably last illusion. It was the shock of seeing a rat as big as a Holstein call off. Goodbye, Warwick, Paul said. Goodbye, Warwick, Paul said. The rat crouched over Mr. Foreman's jealously ripping of one limp arm. Paul turned away and began to make his way back, rapidly, battling the cats with his hose, which was good, um, yeah, the leg less and less potent. Some of them got through and attacked his relatives above the tape of his bed, bottles of his lunging clothes, his ripping, wait, his biting lunges. One of it hung priest on their side, ripping at the cloth of his corduroy pants. Hall managed, Hall managed, Hall made at first and smashed its guide. He was nearly three-quarters of the way back, and when the huge whirring filled the darkness, he looked up in the gigantic flying form, smashed up, smashed up his 16,000 base. The mutant bats had not lost their abilities yet. We whipped around Hall's neck with in a lonesome. Yeah, hold on. It whispered. It whipped around Hall's neck in a lonesome, cold, and supervised as the teeth sought the soft spot under his neck. It wriggled and flapped with its membranous wings, clutching the tatters of his skirt of his shirt for purchase. Hall brought the nozzle of the house up blindly and struck at its yielding boy again and again. It fell away and he trampled it beneath his feet, dimly aware that he was screaming. The rats on the floor over his feet, up his legs. He broke into a staggering run, shaking off, shaking some off, then others a bit at his belly, uh, his chest. One ran up to his shoulder and she pressed, uh, yeah, hmm. He ran in, yeah, he ran into the second bat. It roasted on his head for a moment, squatted and then ripped away, say that. He ran into the second bat as it noted on his second of a moment squealing that, quote, um, yeah, so there's all that, but it didn't really say anything, did it? I don't think so. Hello, John Pika. How you doing tonight? Didn't know what book to read tonight, so then I saw your stream. It was good. Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Hope you're doing well yourself. Alright. He ran into the second bat. It roosted on its head for a moment, squealing, then ripped away a flap of Hall's scalp. He felt his body growing numb, his ears filled with the screech and yammer of many rats. I'll read that comment after I'm done reading this bit. He gave one last heave, stumbled over furry bodies, fell to his knees. He began to laugh, a high, screaming sound. Doing good? Good to hear. 5 a.m. Thursday. Somebody better go down there, Brocher said tentatively. Not me, not me, Wisconsin whispered. Not me. No, not you, Jelly Belly, Ipperson said with contempt. Well, let's go, Brogan said, bringing up another hose. Me, Ipperston, Dangerfield, Nedu, Stevenson, going to the office and get a few more lights. Ipperston looked down into the darkness thoughtfully. Maybe they stalked for smoke, he said. A few rats, what the hell? Stevenson came back with the lights. A few minutes later, they started down. See, the ending of that story makes it seem like that what happened with Warwick Hall and with Warwick and Hall is basically going to be a rinse and repeat for who's about to go down there. It seems like. But now, for the first time ever, we're going to see if we can read a full story before the stream is over. Because this is a short story out of all that we got going on. This is one of the shorter stories in this book compared to some of the other stories that are pretty long for what it's worth. All right, let's get started. Night surf. After the guy was dead and the smell of his burning flesh was off the air, we all went back down to the beach. Corey had his written. Damn, that's one hell of a way to end. That's one hell of a way to start this story. That is one hell of a way to start a story. I'm telling you. But it's a way that that a few like Stephen King only know how. Corey had his radio, one of those suitcase-sized transistor jobs that take about 40 batteries and also make and play tapes. You couldn't say the sound reproduction was great, but it sure was loud. Corey had been well-to-do before age 6, but stuff like that didn't matter anymore. Even his big radio tape player was hardly more than a nice-looking hunk of junk. There were only 2 radio stations left on the air that we could get. One was WKDM in Portsmouth, some backwoods DJ who had gone nutty religious. He'd play a Perry Como record, say a prayer, ball, play a Johnny Ray record, read from Psalms, complete with each Selah, just like James Dean in East of Eden, then ball some more. Happy time stuff like that. One day he sang Bringing in the Sheaves in a cracked, moldy voice that sent Needles and me into hysterics. The Massachusetts station was better, but we could only get it at night. It was a bunch of kids, I guess. They took over the transmitting facilities of WRKO or WBZ after everybody left or died. They only gave gag call letters like WDOPE or KUNT or WA6 or stuff like that. Really funny, you know. You could die laughing. That was the one we were listening to on the way back to the beach. I was holding hands with Susie. Kelly and Joan were ahead of us, and Needles was already over the brow of the point and out of sight. Corey was bringing up the rear, swinging his radio. The Stones were singing Angie. Do you love me? Susie was asking. That's all I want to know. Do you love me? Susie needed constant reassurance. I was her teddy bear. No, I said. She was getting fat, and if she lived long enough, which wasn't likely, she would get really flabby. She was already mouthy. You're rotten, she said, and put a hand to her face. Her linkered fingernails twinkled dimly with the half moon that had risen about an hour ago. Are you going to cry again? Shut up! She sounded like she was going to cry again, all right. We came over the ridge and I paused. I always have to pause. Before Ace Sips, this had been a public beach. Tourists, picnickers, ruddy-nosed kids, and fat, baggy grandmothers with sunburned elbows, candy wrappers and popsicle sticks in the sand, All the beautiful people necking on their beach blankets, intermingled stretch of exhaust in the parking lot, seaweed, and the copper tone oil. But now all the dirt and all the crap was gone. The ocean had eaten it, all of it, as casually as you might eat a handful of Cracker Jacks. There were no people to come back and dirty it again. Just us, and we weren't enough to make much mess. We loved the beach too, I guess. Hadn't we just offered it a kind of a sacrifice? Even Susie, little bitch Susie, with her fat ass and her cranberry bell bottoms. The sand was white and dim and dune, marked only by the high tide line, twisted skein of seaweed, kelp, hunks of driftwood. The moonlight stitched inky crescent-shaped shadows and folds across everything. The deserted lifeguard tower stood white and skeletal some 50 yards from the bathhouse, pointed toward the sky like a finger bone. And the surf, the night surf, throwing up great bursts of foam, breaking against the the headlands for as far as we could see in endless attacks. Maybe that water had been halfway to England the night before. Angie by the stones, the cracked voice on Corey's radio said. I'm sorry you did that one. A blast from the past that's golden gas straight from the graveyard, a plot of the meadows. I'm Bobby. This was supposed to be Fred's night, but Fred got the flu. He's all swelled up. Susie nibbled then, with the first tears still on her eyelashes. I started toward the beach a little faster to keep her quiet. Wait up! Corey called. Bernie? Hey, Bernie, wait up! The guy on the radio was reading some dirty, some dirty limericks, and a girl in the background asked him where did he put the beer. He put something back, but by that time we were on the beach. I looked back to see how Corey was doing. He was coming down on his backside, as usual, and he looked so ludicrous. I felt a little sorry for him. Run with me, I said to Susie. Why? I slapped her on the can and she squealed. Just because it feels good to run. We ran. She fell behind, panting like a horse and calling for me to slow down, but I put her out of my head. The wind rushed past my ears and blew the hair off my forehead. I could smell the salt in the air, sharp and tart. The surf pounded. The waves were like foamed black glass. I took off my rubber sandals and pounded across the sand barefoot, not minding the sharp dips of an occasional shell. My blood roared. And then there was the lean-to with needles already inside, and Kelly and Jones standing behind it, holding hands and looking at the water. I did a forward roll, feeling sand go down the back of my shirt, and the fetch up against Kelly's legs. He fell on top of me and rubbed my face in the sand while Joan laughed. We got up and grinned at each other. Susie had given up running and was plodding toward us. Corey had almost caught up to her. Some fire, Kelly said. Do you think they came all the way from New York like they said? Joan asked. I don't know. I couldn't see that it mattered anyway. He had been behind the wheel of a big Lincoln when we found him, semi-conscious and raving. He was, his head was bloated to the size of a football, and his neck looked like a sausage. He had Captain Trips and not far to go, either. So we took him up to the point that overlooks the beach and burned him. He said his name was Alvin Stackheim. He kept calling for his grandmother. He thought Susie was his grandmother. This struck her funny. God knows why. The strangest things strike Susie funny. It was Corey's idea to burn him up, but it started off as a joke. He had read all those books about witchcraft and black magic at college, and he kept leering at us in the dark beside Alvin St. Sackheim's Lincoln and telling us that if we made a sacrifice to the dark gods, maybe the spirits would keep protecting us against A6. Of course, none of us really believed that bullshit, but the talk got more and more serious. It was a new thing to do, and finally we were ahead and did it. We went ahead and did it. We tied him up to the observation gadget up there. You put a dime in it, and on a clear day do you see all the way to Portland Headlight. We tied him with our belts, and then we went looked rooting around for dry brush and hunks of driftwood, like kids playing a new kind of hide and seek. All the time we were doing it, Sackheim Sackheim just sort of leaned there and mumbled to his grandmother. Susie's eyes got very bright and she was breathing fast. It was really turning her on. When we were down this ravine on the other side of the outcrop, she leaned against me and kissed me. She was wearing too much lipstick and it was like kissing a greasy plate. I pushed her away and that was when she started pouting. We went back up, all of us, and piled dead branches and twigs up to Alvin Sackheim's waist. Needles lit the pyre with a Zippo, and it went up fast. At the end, just before his hair caught on fire, the guy began to scream. There was a smell, just like sweet Chinese pork. Got a cigarette, Bernie? The Needles asked. There's about 50 cartons right behind you. He grinned and slapped a mosquito that was probing his arm. Don't want to move. I gave him a smoke and sat down. Susie and I met Needles in Portland. He was sitting on the curb in front of the State Theater, playing lead belly tunes on a big old Gibson guitar he had looted someplace. The sound had echoed up and down in Congress Street as if he were playing in a concert hall. Susie stopped in front of us, still out of breath. You're rotten, Bernie. Come on, Sue, turn the record over. That side stinks. Bastard. Stupid, unfeeling son of a bitch. Creep! Go away, I said, or I'll black your eyes, Susie. See if I don't. Damn, these people going crazy, I'm telling you. She started to cry again. She was really good at it. Corey came up and tried to put an arm around her. She elbowed him in the crotch and he spit in her face. I'll kill you! She came at him, screaming and weeping, making propellers with her hands. Corey backed off, almost fell, then turned tail and ran. Susie followed him, hurling hysterical obscenities. Needles put back his head and laughed. The sound of Corey's radio came back to us faintly over the surf. Kelly and Joan had wandered off. I could see them down by the edge of the water, walking with their arms around each other's waist. They looked like an ad in a travel agent's window. Fly to beautiful St. Lorca. It was all right. They had a good thing. Bernie? What? I said. I sat and smoked and thought about Needles, flipping back the top of the Zippo, spinning the wheel, making fire with flint and steel like a caveman. I've got it, Needles said. Yeah? I looked at him. Are you sure? Sure I am. My head aches. My stomach aches. Hurts to piss. Maybe it's just Hong Kong flu. Susie had Hong Kong flu. She wanted a Bible. I laughed. That had been while we were still at the university, about a week before they closed it down for good. A month before they started carrying bodies away in dump trucks and burying them in mass graves with payloaders. Look, he lit a match and held it under the angle of his jaw. I could see the first triangular smudges, the first swelling. It was A6, all right. Okay, I said. I don't feel so bad, he said. In my mind, I mean. You, though. You think about it a lot, I can tell. No, I don't. A lie. Sure you do. Like that guy tonight. You're thinking about that too. We probably did him a favor when you get right down to it. I don't think he even knew it was happening. He knew. He shrugged and turned on his side. It doesn't matter. We smoked and I watched the surf come in and go out. Needles had Captain Trips. That made everything real all over again. It was late August already, and in a couple of weeks, the first chill of fall would be creeping in. Time to move inside someplace. Winter. Dead by Christmas, maybe, all of us. In somebody's front room with Corey's expensive radio tape player on top of a bookcase full of Reader's Digest condensed books, and the weak winter sun lying on the rug in meaningless windowpane patterns. The vision was clear enough to make me shudder. Nobody should think about winter in August. It's like a goose walking over your grave. Needles laughed. See? You do think about it. What can I say? I stood up, going to look for Susie. Maybe we're the last people on Earth, Bernie. Did you ever think of that? In the faint moonlight, he already looked half dead, with circles under his eyes and pallid, unmoving fingers like pencils. I walked down to the water and looked out across it. There was nothing to see but the restless, moving humps of the waves, topped by delicate curls of foam. The thunder of the breakers was tremendous down here, bigger than the world, like standing inside a thunderstorm. I closed my eyes and rocked on my bare feet. The sand was cold and damp and packed, and if we were the last people on Earth, so what? This would go on as long as there was a moon to pull the water. Susie and Corey were up the beach. Susie was riding him as if he were a bunking bronc, pounding his head into the running boil of the water. Corey was flailing and splashing. They were both soaked. I walked down and pushed her off with my foot. Corey splashed away on all fours, spluttering and hoofing. I hate you! Susie screamed at me. Her mouth was a dark grinning crescent. It looked like the entrance to a fun house. When I was a kid, my mother used to take us kids to Harrison State Park, and there was a fun house with a big clown face on the front, and you walked in through the mouth. Come on, Susie. Up, Fido. I held out my hand. She took it doubtfully and stood up. There was damp sand clotted on her blouse and skin. You didn't have to push me, Bernie. You don't ever... Come on. She wasn't like the jukebox. You never had to put in a dime and she never came unplugged. We walked up the beach toward the main concession. The man who ran the place had a small overhead apartment. There was a bed. She didn't really deserve a bed, but Needles was right about that. It didn't matter. No one was really scoring the game anymore. The stairs went up the side of the building, but I paused for just a minute to look in the broken window at the dusty wares inside that no one had cared enough about to loot. Stacks of sweatshirts, Anson Beach and a picture of sky and waves printed on the front, glittering bracelets that would green the wrist on the second day, bright junk earrings, beach balls, dirty greeting cards, badly painted ceramic Madonnas, plastic vomit. So realistic. Try it on your wife. 4th of July sparklers for a 4th that never was. Beach towels with a voluptuous girl in a bikini standing amid the names of 100 famous resort areas. Pennants, souvenir of Anson Beach and Park. Balloons, bathing suits. There was a snack bar up front with a big sign saying, "Try our clam cake special." I used to come to Anson Beach a lot when I was little in high school. When I was still in high school. That was 7 years before age 6, and I was going with a girl named Maureen. She was a big girl. She had a pink checked bathing suit. I used to tell her it looked like a tablecloth. We had walked along the boardwalk in front of the place, barefoot, the boards hot and sandy beneath our heels. We had never tried the clam cake special. What are you looking at? Nothing. Come on. I had sweaty, ugly dreams about Alvin Sackheim. He was parked behind the wheel of his shiny yellow Lincoln, talking about his grandmother. He was nothing but a bloated, blackened head and a charred skeleton. He smelled burnt. He talked on, and after a while, I couldn't make out a single word. I woke up breathing hard. Susie was sprawled across my thighs, pale and bloated. My watch said 3:50, but it had stopped. It was still dark out. The surf pounded and smashed. High ride. Make it 4:15. Light soon. I got out of bed and went into the doorway. The sea breeze felt fine against my hot body. In spite of it all, I didn't want to die. I went over in the corner and grabbed a beer. There were 3 or 4 cases of Bud stacked against the wall. It was warm because there was no electricity. I don't mind warm beer like some people do, though. It just foams a little more. Beer is beer. I went back out on the landing and sat down and pulled the ring tab and drank up. So here we were, with the whole human race wiped out, not by atomic weapons or biowarfare or pollution or anything grand like that. Just the flu! I'd like to put down a huge plaque somewhere in the Bonneville Salt Flats, maybe. Bronze Square. 3 miles on a side and in a big raised letters it would say, for the benefit of any landed aliens, just the flu. I tossed the beer can over the side. It landed with a hollow clank on the cement wall that went around the building. The lean-to was a dark triangle on the sand. I wondered if Needles was awake. I wondered if I would be. Bernie? She was standing on she was standing in the doorway wearing one of my shirts. I hate that. She sweats like a pig. You don't like me much anymore, do you, Bernie? I didn't say anything. There were times when I could still feel sorry for everything. She didn't deserve me any more than I deserved her. Can I sit down with you? I doubt if it would be wide enough for both of us. She made a choked, hiccuping noise and started to go back inside. Needles has got 8 sips, I said. She stopped and looked at me. Her face was very still. Don't joke, Bernie. I lit a cigarette. He can't! Yes, he had A2. Hong Kong flu. Just like you and me and Corey and Kelly and Joan. But that would mean he isn't immune. Yes, then we could get it. Maybe he lied when he said he had A2. Said we'd take him along with us that time, I said. Relief spilled across her face. Sure, that's it. I would have lied if it had been me. Nobody likes to be alone, do they? She hesitated. Coming back to bed? Not just now. She went inside. I didn't have to tell her that A2 was no guarantee against A6. She knew that. She had just blocked it out. I sat and watched the surf. It was really up. Years ago, Anson had been the only halfway decent surfing spot in the state. The point was a dark jutting hump against the sky. I thought I could see the upright that was the observation post, but it probably was just imagination. Sometimes Kelly took Joan up to the point. I didn't think they were up there tonight. I put my face in my hands and clutched it, feeling the skin, its grain and texture. It was all narrow, so swiftly, and it all was all so mean. There was no dignity in it. The surf is coming in, coming in. Limitless, clean and deep. We had come here in the summer, Maureen and I. the summer after high school, the summer before college, in reality, and A-ships coming out of Southeast Asia and covering the world like a pall. July, we had eaten pizza and listened to her radio. I'd put oil on her back, she had put oil on mine. The air had been hot, the sand bright, and the sun like a burning glass. Hmm. Alright, so. Alright, so. So we did do what I said I was going to try to do, and that was finish up the story that I was watching, which was, I believe it was, and read a full story, which ended up being Night Surf. So we did do that. We still got a bit of a ways to go. So I'm probably gonna have to start reading these books every day, so that way we can get through them and try to get through these other three books: Jaws, Psycho, and Fantastic Land. But in any case, I'll go ahead and just stop there for the night with Night Shift. So, uh, yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching this part. I will be going live tomorrow, reading the book, and because I said I was going to do this also, and if my thing would stop undoing this movie, that'd be lovely. But tomorrow, alongside, like I said, alongside, uh, yeah, so alongside that, I'll also be reacting to the original Child's Play trilogy, and then uh, on the 11th, alongside doing a Dragon Ball Spartan Zero live stream, because I did say I was gonna, because I did say I pre-ordered that, and you guys know I'm gonna have to do a live stream involving playing the game for the first time on its release date. So yeah, that's gonna be the whole plan for the next few days. Tomorrow, reading more Night Shift, doing the first of the three Chucky movies. So basically, the first half of the six Chucky movies got in this collection, and then on the 11th, well, then on the 10th, we do some more reading of the book, do the second half of Chucky movies, and then on the 11th, Dragon Ball Spartan Zero, and then let me see here. I gotta do the math because today is the 8th. Tomorrow's gonna be the 9th. So that those three that put me at 8, I think. Hmm. I think so because I did watch They, The Cave, Incarnate. What were the other two? Hunting the Legend and Silent Hills. Those are the current five I've watched. This would be 8 tomorrow, and then 9, 10, 11. So I'm almost a bit, I'd probably be a bit ahead. But at the same time, that would give me a chance to do some other stuff before I get caught up. Yeah, we'll probably do it like that anyway. It, I'll figure it out, but that's probably going to be probably the basic idea going forward for the moment. So yeah. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Hope you guys enjoyed this reading live stream of Night Shift. Um, and until tomorrow, this is Forrest Walpole. And when I say tomorrow, I mean later today because it is 1:30, almost 2 o'clock a.m. on the 9th. So, so until later tonight, this is Forrest Walpole signing off.